Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Bonjour pour ceux qui nous écoutent avec la traduction en français. My name is Samuel Blazik. I'm working at the African Water Facility. I'm coming from Abidjan, African Development Bank. And I'm here today with three invitees. Mr. Ager Jorgensen, you're Program Manager at the Nordic Development Fund. Welcome. Mr. Chirwa Muchera, you're coming also from the African Development Bank, coordinator of the African Water Facility. And Mr. Tobias von Pletten-Allemud, you're coming from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Denmark as a chief advisor for green diplomacy and climate. Welcome to all of you. We're going to discuss today the joint program being implemented jointly by the Nordic Development Fund, the African Water Facility, and the government of Denmark in the Sahel region and the Horn of Africa to improve access to water and sanitation for some of the most vulnerable countries in the world through climate resilience solution, in all being done in the context of a post-COVID period. So we're going to dive now directly in our subject, and I will ask you first, Mr. Chirwa, to present to us the African Water Facility, when its history, what the facility is doing, and why is it a unique instrument in Africa.
Thank you very much, Sam, and thanks for this opportunity, and greetings to all the viewers and participants here. Indeed, the Africa Water Facility is a special instrument created by the African Ministers' Council on Water in 2004. You know, it was set up after realizing that there isn't much investment going into the water and sanitation sector in Africa, but that for that investment to happen, there was a need to have good projects to invest in. And so they created this facility which primarily focuses on project preparation for water and sanitation projects in all the African countries. It started operations in 2006 and in partnerships with key donors, donor countries and partners, notably the Nordic Development Fund, Denmark, but also Canada, Norway, and other countries mobilized resources in excess of 200 million euro so far, out of which about 170 million has been invested in 125 projects in 52 countries in Africa, creating a major impact in terms of access, increasing access to water and sanitation, be it in urban areas but also in rural areas. So the facility provides grants to applicants. We will check requests for financing to make sure that they align with our strategic objectives, which are 4 currently. Project preparation is key, so 60% of our funding is to prepare projects. That means from concept through feasibility studies, detailed design, and structuring the financing of a project so that investment can happen downstream. That's the first priority area. The second is catalytic investment. So basically we provide some financing to some infrastructure projects, but to catalyze more money, more investment. So basically just to spur additional investment or to replicate innovation in other countries. The third area is investment promotion. So basically trying to mobilize investors into the water and sanitation sector in Africa. And the fourth area is to improve governance of the water sector in Africa. So basically we support institutional capacity, we support reforms, we support technical assistance to help the management of water and sanitation in Africa. So the Africa Water Facility is hosted in the African Development Bank, where it is managed, and has a governing council that includes the key donors and partners, but also key African institutions like the African Union, and the African Ministers' Council on Water, which basically provide approval for our work programs, our budget, but also help us to mobilize more resources into the sector. So that's in a nutshell what the African Water Facility is, and I hand back to you, Sam.
Thank you, Muchera, and I believe we can find a lot of information on our website, on the Twitter and Facebook of the facility. Tobias, you're representing Denmark, which is a long-standing partner for the African Water Facility. Now, this new program since last year, targeting countries in the Horn and the Sahel region. Can you tell us more about this program and why it is important for Denmark?
Thank you, Sam. And as you mentioned, actually, Denmark is indeed a long-standing partner to the African Water Facility. And actually, we were part of the creation of the facility back in 2004. So it's really good to be back again in the facility and to be engaged in this program. So this program is really about, as you mentioned, improving access to climate resilience, water supply and sanitation in the Horn of Africa and the Sahel. And the idea of the program really came about during the initial phase of COVID-19, and you already had discussion with the Nordic Development Fund on how to respond to the COVID pandemic in Africa. And I think, as we all really agree to, the pandemic really showed, of course, one, that the really huge need for access to clean water in order to wash hands and to somehow control the pandemic. And it also reminded us on the huge gaps in actually providing these services in the world and especially also in Africa. So the idea was initially to have a quick response to the COVID-19 in the Sahel and Horn of Africa. But in the end, we agreed to develop a dual approach to the program. So somehow combining immediate improvements of infrastructure, water infrastructure, operational improvements, and on the other side, and more also really close to the mandate of the African Water Facility to invest in project preparation activities and capacity building around actually being able to prepare these projects. So and from our side, from the Danish side, this actually happened at the same time as we had a new strategy very focused on water, on climate, and very ambitious on climate change adaptation. So for our side, it was really important to have focus on impact, on actually being able to provide and improve access to safe water. And on the other hand, it was also really important for us to somehow try to combine our bilateral support in the Sahel and the Horn of Africa, which is really heavily engaged in water, and then multilateral support like to the African Water Facility to somehow find these synergies. And that's why we decided to focus on those countries in the Sahel and the Horn of Africa. And then most importantly, I think, as you also mentioned in your introduction, to have climate resilience as a really strong focus of the program, to make sure that in a very focused and structured way, to ensure that we integrate climate and risk from current and future climate impacts in the design, in the project preparation activities, and really insist that we do climate vulnerability assessments in the countries around the projects to ensure that we're really building the resilience of communities and create sustainable solutions. So I think for us, it's really a flagship program. It's really something where we can see that this is focusing on climate resilience and water supply, and will hopefully really support and help vulnerable and fragile communities to build resilience, and of course also to combat the impacts from COVID-19 and improve that health situation. And as I mentioned, I think so that dual approach of having immediate response and quick improvements in existing infrastructure, and also really being aligned with the African Water Facility mandate of improving project preparation activities and the whole capacity development around climate change adaptation, and really focusing on that is something we're really keen on, and something which is really aligned with what our strategy on how to work with water and climate. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. As we discussed, as I said, this program is a joint program with Nordic Development Fund and Denmark. So I'm turning now to you, Auge, because you are also, NDF is also a very key partner for a long time for the facility, the African Water Facility. And this program is targeting very vulnerable, very fragile countries. Why this choice? And could you also tell us a bit how this program is a bit different than the one you supported before at the facility?
Yes, certainly. Thank you very much. Actually, NDF approved in 2014 €6 million support to the African Water Facility. The reason behind this support was that we actually visited the bank several times, and when we discussed with the African Water Facility, it was clear that, climate was not fully integrated in their work. It was an add-on that you would do when you did the environmental and social safeguard screening. So climate was not a fundamental aspect of its operations and activities. So we proposed that we could provide financing and actually try to strengthen the climate aspects of the African Water Facility. The grant was for a call for proposals. So a call for proposals was actually launched at the Stockholm Water Week in 2014. And the result of that was about 240 something proposals that came in from 28 countries across the continent. But we all know, if you have been involved in call for proposals, it's very time consuming. So it took a long time before actually there was a long list, and then there was a short list, and finally 9 proposals were selected for financing. And I can tell that today, eight years later, we still have 4 ongoing projects. So it's a very time-consuming and resource-consuming process. So when the water facility actually visited NDF in early 2020, and just before the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, we discussed that perhaps it would be, if we are going in with a new support, we should have something more focused upfront. So we discussed that we can see that Sahel is very much an underserved region. Lots of, if you look at the recent IPCC reports on the assessment reports on climate, you can see that this is a region where you have more and more days during the year without any rain. So that means we have longer periods of droughts, which again leads to issues related to water security and so on. And again, these are fragile, what's so-called fragile states and conflict-ridden states. So again, we know that many of these conflicts are actually related to natural resources, including water. So again, if you want to also, reduce conflicts, you also need to manage your resources better, including provide access to basic resources such as water. So we had a long discussion on this, and we also included the Horn of Africa because it's kind of a continuous region across the continent, and it faces the same issues, the same challenges. At the same time, as Tobias mentioned, we had the COVID-19 pandemic, and if you notice, just 1 year back, everybody was talking about building back better and greener. Now it's not mentioned so much, but the idea of this program was also to actually let's do some investments in water supply and in sanitation, but let's do it right from the start, actually using integrating climate resilience. That means that right from the concept, you look at the water cycle. So you're not just going ahead and making boreholes here and there, and then hoping that the water will continue coming out of your tap. No, you actually look at where is the water coming from, and where are the watersheds, and if it's groundwater, what is the level of the aquifer, and so on. So in order to actually monitor and make sure that what you invest in, what you prepare, is actually going to last in the longer term. So that means that climate resilience, sustainability is built in right from the start. Also, we see a lot of water supplies in off-grid water supplies across the continents are diesel driven. That means that the energy for water pumping and so on is actually done by diesel. So here we are looking at renewable energy across. There will be no utilization of diesel. Everything will be either on-grid or off-grid renewable. So all this has been very carefully integrated. So it's a very different project or program that we are now launching, and I understand that there's very good success across most of the countries in the program. And again, we from the Nordic Development Fund, as a climate finance institution, we are working very much on the resilience, that everything you finance should really be resilient. So that means that we are in other projects developing a resilience tool, so you can actually check and design your projects right from the start, so that climate change has been taken into consideration, and what you are investing in, what you're building, is actually going to last for the entire lifetime of the project. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Auge. Yeah, very climate-oriented program, targeting the poor population of those countries. Which I'm coming back to you as the coordinator of the facility. Tobias said the program will have two components, some immediate urgent intervention, but also preparation of larger investment projects. So could you give us a bit more or some examples of the project which are going to be prepared and which countries for this joint program?
Thank you again, Sam. Indeed, so basically we have 5 countries that have been selected in this phase of the program. These are 3 countries in the Sahel. So we have Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger in West Africa. And then 2 countries in East Africa, in the Horn of Africa region, that's Somalia and Ethiopia. And for each of these countries, we are looking at projects in rural areas and in urban areas. And currently we have made some advancement in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, where we have identified, in partnership with the governments and the communities, potential projects that we're going to finance. Under the overall program, we're looking to invest through the support of Denmark and NDF in excess of 30 million euro in these investments. And then we have identified the projects and are now working through the documents that will help us to secure approval of the grants for each of these interventions. In excess of 500 or 500,000 people are going to benefit from improved access to water and sanitation under this program, amongst other targets that we have set about. In Somalia, obviously also because it's a country that has had a lot of difficulties in governance and some conflict, we're also helping them to build their own capacity to be able to manage these projects. And through this support, we'll be able to provide actual capacity building in each of these countries to build in resilience, climate resilience, in the way they plan their projects, not just the current projects, but also building that capacity for future interventions. But also building in aspects that will help access to water and sanitation to within the country's vulnerable members of the society. We're talking here women, we're talking about children, young people, and also the focus on communities that are remote from any access at all. So the impact of this program is huge. It's going to be huge, and the countries are very eager to work with us and thankful for the support. And we hope in the next few years, once the interventions are implemented, to be able to demonstrate the impact, the positive impact that this will have, and the potential sustainability going forward. And from our side as a water facility, we hope that this will be just one program which we can also take elsewhere to other countries, learning from the lessons that we're going to learn from this particular program.
Thank you very much. We still have a few minutes to discuss, exactly 5 minutes. So maybe I could, Tobias, if you want to add some elements on this program or on what you are expecting in the project that Muchera has just presented, maybe I'll give you the floor for 1 minute and also the occasion to conclude a bit the talk. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Sam. And I think I really agree with your comments on having climate resilience as the primary focus, of course, with providing access to water and improving the health conditions as also really part of that work. For us, we have very big expectations, and I think it's something. This program is, as I mentioned, to us, it's a flagship program because it's something where we really want to combine two really strong strategic objectives of the Danish government, and that is climate change adaptation and water supply. So we have very big expectation and something we, of course, also really want to communicate when implementation starts picking up and see impacts on the ground. And I think really important also to highlight that, of course, the whole mandate of the facility and the whole element of project preparation also requires other investors, donors, banks, governments to actually pick up these projects and invest in them. And I think that's really something where we hope we can have a long-term impact also, and not only an immediate impact, but a long-term impact, and actually building that strong project pipeline and finding investors and others to actually support and finance these projects. And I think that's an important takeaway that we need that, and hope it can be countries, banks, investors. Of course, bringing private sector is important. So I think that's important to emphasize.
Thank you, Tobias. Yes, sure. And investment promotion, also finding leverage money from $1 to $29 is the mandate of the facility. Funding this money to fund larger investment in the sector. Do you want to add something?
Exactly. I want to say that actually the evaluation, there was an independent evaluation done by a Canadian team 2 years ago of the African Water Facility. It found that the water facility is very strong in fragile states. Actually, for each euro invested or $1 invested, they actually get $33 in the downstream investment. So in that sense, it's a very strong performance. I also want to say that as a Nordic, all 5 Nordic countries, it's very high on the agenda, gender equity, gender equality, and the gender aspects. And when we talk about water and sanitation, that goes right to the core of that. So again, we hope that also through this program, there is a strong focus on actually improving conditions for women and children, as Muchera said, but also making both water supply and sanitation easier and more accessible is also a contribution to gender equity.
Yeah,
thank you.
For sure. Thank you. We still have 1.5 minutes, maximum 2 minutes. Muchera, can I give you the floor to conclude and maybe to give also some other news of the African Water Facility, because there's many things going on now, and I think it's the good moment also to inform about that and to conclude the talk show.
Yes. Thank you very much, Sampath. First, a big thank you to Nordic Development Fund and Denmark for this program. These investments, I can assure you, are life-changing, and the impact, you have to go to the ground to see the conditions under which these people are living in these countries without access. So your resources are going to put to good use to change the lives of people for the better. This is the big message that really we want to put out there. And the facility is really there to serve the needs of African communities, the whole continent, and poor communities, fragile countries especially, which are totally left out of overall general development. And so the facility is going out and reaching out to other partners. Recently we have engaged with USAID, who are a new partner that are working to join the African Water Facility and also provide support. We're very thankful for that, and we are reaching out to other partners to find solutions that will help to deliver good services and access to water for vulnerable communities in Africa. So thanks to the two partners we have now, but we are welcome to invite other partners to do more and make a change to the lives of these poor communities.
Thank you very much, Muchera, Auger, and Tobias. I think we are done with our talk show today. Thank you.
Thank you.